Think you can compost just during the warmer summer months? Think again. This is vermicomposting. You can compost year-round, even in the depths of winter. On this episode, I'm going to show you how to make your own worm bin, how to care for your worms and feed them, so that you can take your own kitchen scraps and turn them into garden gold. Composting your kitchen scraps doesn't have to stop when the temperatures drop. Vermicomposting is perfect for small spaces. It's odor-free, it's clean, and you can even fit your worm bin under your kitchen sink. The secret to vermicomposting? Red wigglers. That's right, it's a very special type of worm that differs greatly from your common worms that you're probably more familiar with, like your earthworms. One of the big differences is these guys like to live closer to the surface. So they're great for growing in bins, and they take those kitchen scraps and they break those things down into nutrient-rich castings. And they are very efficient at this. In fact, they can eat several times their body weight of food scraps every day. So these little guys are the key to vermicomposting. You don't need any fancy tools to have your own worm bin. You just need a few plastic tote bins that they're the opaque kind like you see here, not the see-through kind, and you need one lid. They need to be the same size so they fit together like this. Then you're going to need a drill. This is a cordless drill, makes it a lot easier. A 1/4-inch drill bit, and then bonus that I kind of like to have, but it's not necessary, is I like to have one much larger drill bit. This is a 1/2 inch for the ventilation holes. I'll show you in a moment here. I like to mark the grid out for the drainage holes on the bottom of the bin. I used a Sharpie, makes it easier, and then some kind of a straight edge or measuring tool, could be even a tape measure. Straight edge makes it a little bit easier. And then for my ventilation holes, I like to use some screen door or window screen patch in order to make sure that I don't get any bugs or anything like that in the bin. It's just extra, it's not necessary. And so then what you're going to do is you're only going to drill holes into one bin. So you're going to take one of your bins. You won't need the lid. And then what you're going to do is flip it over and you're going to mark out a grid on the bottom 2 inches by 2 inches apart. And you're going to drill all the holes in the bottom there. And then just pull out any little plastic bits that are left over. Then you're going to flip the bin over. And you're going to take your either 1/4-inch drill bit or a larger one, like I used a 1/2 inch, and up here towards the top, you're going to drill some ventilation holes on both of the longer sides of the bin. And then as a bonus, you don't have to, but if you want to, you can apply some kind of a window screen patch. Like I said, the one that I'm using is super easy because the adhesive is activated just by a normal hairdryer. So very simple to do. And then to assemble your worm bin, it works just like a fancy one that you buy. This bin with the holes in it goes inside of here. And this is where you need to make sure that your ventilation holes aren't below here, because obviously they wouldn't ventilate very well. So make sure your holes are up here. It just sits in here, and that way the inner tub keeps anything out of those holes in the bottom and gives some space for those holes to leach worm castings or any built up moisture, anything like that. And then you use just the one lid is all you need, and you've got your lid and it's sealed up and ready to go for your red wigglers. Pretty cool, huh? All right, so you've either got a tray that you ordered from somewhere. It might be wood like this. This is a really nice cedar one. I'll include the link for those interested. Or you might be using your DIY tote style bin. Either way works the same way. You're going to have holes, or you're going to have a screen on the bottom of it in order to let moisture drip through, as well as maybe some worm castings. After all, that's why we're doing this, right? And the goal here is we want to create the optimum environment for your new worms, your red wigglers, your composting worms, to live, so that you can add food scraps once they get established, and they will eat those for you and produce garden gold. So, couple of things you're going to need. They like a moist environment. I find it super handy to have a water bottle. I also almost always like to have a little bowl of water. You're going to need some materials for bedding. In this case, you can always just use, if you don't have pre-made bedding, you can just use some shredded cardboard. I really like the insides of toilet paper rolls. Amazon boxes, usually the cardboard's really good. That just means it doesn't have any like glossy colored printing on it. Egg cartons are fantastic. The old school though, cardboard kind like this, because they're really fibrous. Or maybe you purchased bedding, which I did here. And again, you can see shopworms.com. I'll leave the link for that. I've really liked these guys so far. And then of course, you're gonna need your worms. So you've got your bedding supplies and your worms. The only other thing that I recommend, especially if you've got a tray like this with a grid or holes and you're establishing it for the first time, is just some newspaper. And then you're going to want to moisten it. This I definitely find easier to do with a spray bottle, spraying it rather than pouring water. You can imagine if you pour water, it's not going to soak up the water right away. It's going to probably kind of make a mess. Moisten it just a little bit. And then what you want to do is you want to add your worm bedding. Now, if you have your pre-made bedding and it's shredded up, like the coco coir or the peat moss or whatever it is, worm bedding that you purchased is ready to go. You know, it's kind of like a soil. You can just spread it out evenly in there and then spray it with your spray bottle. If you have the cardboard, shred up whatever types that you have into some pieces. This is where a bowl of water comes in handy, and a larger bowl. Then dump the water in the bowl with your cardboard scraps in it and let that soak for a while. And once that soaks up the moisture, what we're looking for, whether you're using bedding or that's pre-made or you're making your own, is you want it to be like a wrung out sponge. So you know how if you wring a sponge out and then you go to kind of squeeze it again, you can maybe get a few drops out of it, you know. That's what you're looking for. So because if you get too much water, the worms aren't going to be able to breathe. You can literally, if there's a lot of water, you can drown the worms. And then on the other hand, if they don't have enough moisture, they can get dried out and perish as well, unfortunately. So the moisture level is really important, particularly if you're using the shredded cardboard and things of that nature. You're going to want to spread those out and kind of break them up so that they don't clump together. And you might have similar challenges with the other types of bedding. It's not just a cardboard thing. Just make sure it's kind of all fluffy and a happy home for your little red wigglers. So the moment is finally here, and these guys just arrived. So they're going to be super excited to get into their new home, which is likely better than this little bag here. So let's get them in. To get them in, we'll want to take just a little bit at a time. You know, there's no reason to do like 1 or 2 worms at a time, but we'll want to take like a handful and basically add them into here in little clumps. Little hands are even great for this. So if you have kids, you can do that as well. And just put some handfuls evenly across the top of the surface of your bin or your tray, and just leave them alone. And what they'll do is they'll start to wiggle around and they'll be kind of checking out their new home. And eventually, and because there's some light, that's helpful, they will instinctively start to dig and bury themselves into the tray. And Then you want to just kind of let them do their thing for a little while. Let them get accustomed to it. Give them a little food. Don't get me wrong. They're going to be hungry from their journey. And let them kind of eat away at those, monitor it quite a lot at first. Check the moisture level, things like that. If you start to see the scraps being eaten, great. Add a few more, spread them evenly across the top, and just kind of let them do their thing. All right, so to take care of your worm bin, just make sure you store it in a place that's 55 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Then, as an added helpful tip, put it in a place that's fairly easy to get to. So it's easy for you to check in on them, make sure that they're doing okay. If you need to spray and, give them a little bit more moisture, easy to go add your kitchen scraps. When you're adding kitchen scraps, cut up fruits and vegetables really small. If you're adding eggshells, just make sure you crush those eggshells up really small. And if you're adding coffee grounds, that can be really good too. Just make sure you're kind of crumbling those up. And whatever you're adding to it, just make sure you kind of smooth it out into an even single layer on the surface of the worm bedding, and you're good to go. What you want to avoid is meat, dairy, and greasy foods. Don't add those. Those can cause some issues. You might be attracting pests, put off an odor. As long as you avoid those things, your worms will be healthy and happy. As an added bonus, you can also get some worm food that can help with the health of your worms. It can be super helpful when you're establishing your worm bin for the first time. If you're having problems with moisture and the problem that you're having is the bedding's drying out too quickly, you can get one of these. It's really cute. It's called a worm blanket. That's what it is. And you just put it inside of the bin on top of the food scraps and the bedding, and it helps hold the moisture in, and it also makes it a little darker. But otherwise, that's it. It's really easy, and your red wigglers will love their happy new home. Once your worms settle into their new home, that's when the magic begins. They'll start to break down those kitchen scraps that you add into rich nutrients called castings. And those castings are what your garden and even your house plants are going to love. Now, in a little time, it might take several weeks or maybe even several months, you're going to notice a transformation as you open up the lid to check on your worms, to add food scraps and things like that. You're going to notice that those food scraps quickly sort of disappear. They become unrecognizable, and they turn into this rich compost-like structure, and that's what worm castings are. Now, while I wait for mine, and hopefully you wait for yours to be ready for harvesting, I'll give you some updates. So share whatever updates you have in the comments. On a future episode, what I'll do is I'll share with you how to know when to harvest, when your castings are ready, how to sift through those castings and separate your worms and the worm bedding from the castings, and how to utilize that in the garden. If you like content like this, and you're a busy urban gardener like I am, and you'd like to learn more, please like and subscribe to my channel. It's free, and that way you'll get updated, and YouTube will serve you more content like this that you're interested in. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, happy gardening.